I recently reviewed the Lenovo ThinkPad P14s Gen 5 Intel laptop. It was then directly compared to the AMD version of the P14s Gen 5 and was found to be my favorite laptop of all time so far. It's mostly thanks to the larger battery, 120Hz IPS screen, and Nvidia RTX 500 GPU, not to be confused with the RTX A500 from the last generation, which is noticeably less powerful. Now that all the boring videos are done, it's time for my favorite part, getting into the nitty-gritty about how well it games. Let's dive right in.
Slap Tech.
In order to determine if there's enough horsepower to appease the needs, not necessarily the wants, of any gamer out there, this analysis will start with Snake Pass. If a PC can play this game at 1080p in max details, it can play anything comfortably, even though that might mean low details in the latest games. And here we are in 1200p in max details, cruising around reliably at 60 frames per second. Personally, I don't need any more teraflops than this, but to subdue my own curiosity, here's what happens when the resolution goes up to 3K, the native resolution of the monitor. It doesn't bode well for the RTX 500 and its paltry 4 gigs of VRAM, but to reiterate my original premise, I don't care. If there's a game out there that this GPU can't play, the program is to blame, not the GPU. Speaking of games that blame, here's Forza Horizon 5, who wants you to feel bad for still having your original arms and legs while glorifying a country that does nothing about fentanyl trafficking. With the detail level at the high preset minus ray tracing and no DLSS at 1200p, it's a smooth picture with nary a frame dropped. Yay! Now the 100 gigs this game occupies will be much better suited as empty space than inhabited by this garbage. Every time I uninstall it, an angel gets its wings and a scammer call center turns into an octagon storefront. Just to see how well it runs, Diablo 4 is now on the screen. It performs perfectly well at high details and 50% resolution without DLSS. Remember, this is a 3K display, so 50% resolution is still 700K more pixels than 1200p. With that in mind, 70% resolution looks mostly fine in this footage, but there will be plenty of stuttering when loading new graphical texture assets and special effects. I would highly recommend using 50% resolution for ultra-smooth 60 FPS gameplay. Overwatch can easily be played competitively on the Intel and RTX-powered P14s. This practice match is driven by 60 FPS of full teraflop and force, never wavering or stuttering at all at 1200p in the ultra-detail preset. For quick reference, here's the same detail levels with the frame rate uncapped, and it's casually rendering at over 100 FPS in the practice range. It's not going to go this high in a full-fledged firefight, but getting a decent edge over opponents is just 1 or 2 detail presets away. Not a half-bad way to competitively game, and on a ThinkPad of all things. Time to kick it old school with the Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Despite the game's age, it still puts up a fight with the system requirements. Here in the highest details preset, it's a little too much for the RTX 500 and gets a sub 60 FPS. This is without ray tracing, naturally. Fortunately, all that's needed to move the performance needle to perfection is a little Nvidia DLSS. With this set to balanced, the frame rate settles at a near constant 60. If I wanted to come as close as I ever will to controlling a strong independent woman, this is how I do it. For the Nordic purgatory of it, let's boot up Valheim. Using Direct3D and the performance preset at 1200p, it's smooth sailing as far as the eye can see. You'll have to forgive it for some ultra-quick stuttering here and there, but that's just the nature of this open-world survival beast of an experience. Pushing the preset up to quality is a surefire way to spoil the near perfection, plus it doesn't have any obvious visual benefits to the untrained eye, like mine. I'd keep it in performance and enjoy the silky smooth motion. The best way to test the ray tracing capabilities of the GPU is to boot up Quake 2 RTX. After all, it's called the RTX 500, so it should be able to do ray tracing well, right? Wrong. Frame rates aren't even going as high as the RTX 2060, a much older GPU that the P14s matches in modern benchmarks outside of ray tracing performance. To its credit, playable performance at the highest detail level is achieved at 800p resolution, which is more than enough for an ancient title like Quake 2, ray tracing or not. And that capability is beyond the reach of the 2022 Asus G14, which handily hands the P14s's own ass to it in pretty much everything else but a beauty contest. So there you go, the P14s beats the G14 when the game is outrageously rigged in the ThinkPad's favor. That's how you get a participation trophy. To wrap up PC gaming, we'll take a look at another classic, Witcher 3. Wandering around through Northinistan nets us around 60 most of the time. The limited VRAM is what hurts the most, as rounding corners causes some jittery performance for half a second. Personally, I lower the texture resolution to play this game perfectly smooth and be very happy with it. And for the curious at heart, here's medium details, the native 3K resolution of the monitor. This is really putting the RTX 500 through its paces, and the noticeable input lag really shows it. There's not a lot of games this laptop can play at the native res of the monitor, and this is just one more example. That's enough of the boring stuff. Now that we have a good idea of how well this laptop performs, let's take a look at how well the peripherals work to facilitate the gaming experience. Playing some retro games are an excellent way to analyze the display quality, speakers, and battery life. First of all, it's absolutely critical for retro games to perform well on energy saver mode. And that's what happens with standalone emulators like PPSSPP as shown. This is 2x native res while an energy saver, and it's moving at a consistent 60. Dolphin and PCSX2 will play just as well in 2x native res, but you'll see more stuttering in action games that introduce textures at a fast pace. Thankfully, the stuttering is strongly mitigated when on AC power. When using the battery, expect 3 hours of Dolphin or Citra on the full charge at native res. This figure can probably be extended by forcing the integrated ARC GPU to be used, but then why would you buy this version of the P14s? Finishing up, let's take a look at 2D retro games. It's the simple, aged things in life that bring out my nitpicky alter ego. I'm very particular about ghosting, speaker quality, and battery life here. Unfortunately, battery life sucks a big one by default. Only 3 hours and 20 minutes is a pretty big bummer for a laptop with a 75 watt-hour battery and power-efficient CPU. I know I just said, why would you buy this laptop to shut off the RTX 500 to play retro games, but if you do use only the iGPU to play 2D stuff, you'll get 6 hours and 40 minutes, which is pretty damn respectable. The ghosting is also respectable. It's not great by any means, but for those who would call it not good, I'd fight 'em. I've seen worse ghosting on budget gaming laptops with high refresh rate screens. The colors might not pop, but this is a 100% DCI P3 screen, and the balance is perfectly neutral. I also can't complain about the speakers. They get decently loud and have good clarity. While they're not bassy at all and can barely fill a room, they get the job done and aren't annoyingly biased to the mid or upper range, meaning they don't sound muffled or tinny. This is an excellent laptop to play 2D retro games with, especially if you're patient enough to switch the dedicated GPU off and on again when it's time to conserve battery life. For the bottom line, this GPU-equipped workstation will competently live a double life as a gaming machine. Consider me one who is selfishly hogging a fantastic productivity partner to do things that in no way, shape, or form help to progress humanity to the next level of intellectual enlightenment. That being said, there are bona fide gaming laptops out there with more powerful GPUs for the same, and in some cases, less scratch. The trade-off for the more leisure-oriented PC user has to do with the superior creature comforts, subdued and timeless styling, and giving the impression that you know Robert's Rules of Order front to back. Lenovo's proven track record of reliability in their top-of-the-line ThinkPads is also a nice boon, one that I'd gladly shell out more clams to benefit from. This has been Playing Games with the Lenovo ThinkPad P14s Gen 5 Intel and Nvidia version here on Slaptech. I've already uploaded my full review of this laptop, and if you haven't seen it, check the top right corner. Like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, and ask me any questions about this laptop or life in general in the comment section below. Stay tuned for more great laptop reviews. Thanks for watching, and you guys, have a good night.